Today we're talking to Dr. Jasmine Whiteside, our newest faculty hire. So, Dr. Whiteside, we want to know a little bit more about you.
Mm-hmm.
What's your official job title here?
I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology. So I guess the official job title is assistant professor, tenure track.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about some of your background? Where are you from?
Okay, so it's funny here because usually I'll just say like the school or whatever, but I think here because I'm in Kentucky, I like to mention that I like grew up in Mississippi. So like I'm from like the deep South, and I know there's like always questions like what is the South, but I am from South Mississippi, so I am personally from the deep South. And I got my undergrad at the University of Southern Mississippi, and I went to grad school at the Ohio State University, so the Midwest, the school of the Midwest, some would say. And now I'm here at the University of Louisville.
Wow, you've sort of jumped all over the map a little bit.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
What about your degrees?
Oh, yeah. So my undergrad degree was in sociology, so the one at Southern Miss with a minor in nonprofit studies. And I got my PhD, so my master's and PhD at Ohio State in sociology as well. So I've stuck on the sociology track, even though I've almost changed my major multiple times. Not because I didn't like sociology, but because I was like, oh, maybe I could do law, or maybe I could do social work, because I was like, or social work or nonprofit studies again. But yeah, so sociology, BA, and then sociology for my master's and my dissertation. And now I'm here in a sociology program.
Well, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So, what drew you to sociology?
What drew me to, so it's funny, it's like what drew me to sociology and what keeps bringing me back to sociology, because like I said, I almost changed my major a couple of times, not because I didn't like it, but because I was like, oh, I want to do this applied thing. Initially in my undergrad, I was a social work major, like declared social work major, and we had to take, the prereqs, and so I took my first sociology course was a pretty advanced level sociology course. I think it was deviant behavior. So it wasn't like one of the, it wasn't theory level, but it was like, it wasn't social 101. So I skipped social 101, took deviant behavior, and I was like, oh, I love this. I love being able to look at these topics and talk about them. And so I was going to double major or major in social work and then minor in sociology. And then I took 101 and I took social problems and I took theory. And I think once I took theory, I was like, yeah, I want to do the sociology thing full time. So I ended up doing sociology for undergrad with a minor in nonprofit studies because I had already taken so many social work based classes and nonprofit based classes. And so when I was applying to grad programs, same thing. I applied to sociology, I applied to higher education, and I applied to social work grad programs. And I went to the different visits, and I ended up choosing Ohio State sociology program. And so at Ohio State, I took classes in other departments, so I was kind of able to dip and dabble in a few more outside of sociology courses. But yeah, everything, I love sociology and just kind of the vastness of what you learn and what you can do with it. So yeah, so that's what drew me and kept me in sociology.
Well, continuing on with that same sort of thought, what brought you here to UofL?
Oh, I mean, I could be funny and say the job offer, but no, even so, you could even. I mean, this is a video, but even my advisors and friends know, I wanted to go back south, but I didn't necessarily want to go back I didn't necessarily want to be tied to a place. So I wanted to go back south, but I didn't care if I was in Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, wherever. I was like, I kind of want to get back a little bit closer to home. And so I saw the UofL position, and it was race and ethnicity and education. And it's funny because when I was on the market, I was applying for race and ethnicity positions, and I was applying for education positions. And I kept telling my advisor, I'd be like, it'd be sweet if I saw a position where they wanted somebody who did both, because I could really do that. That's what I do. And then I saw the UofL position, and I was like, oh, I'm applying for this. And it's in the South, but it's still close enough to my friends that I now have in Ohio, and close to my family in a way. So it's not a 12-hour drive, but a 6-hour drive, or 9, whatever, I can do that. And so when I came for my visit, I visited here a couple of times before I actually accepted the position. And it just the students, they all seemed very friendly and very welcoming. like grad students and undergrads, and then the faculty, the people who I met with during my initial visit, like, you know, during the nerve-wracking part where you're like auditioning for the job type of thing, like they were all really nice. Like I didn't feel like I was auditioning, even though I said auditioning. I felt like I was, you know, where I needed to be type of thing, and it just kind of made me feel a little bit more comfortable throughout the whole process. So I felt like I could be myself. And so with me being myself, I was like, well, they can either like me or not like me. And they offered me the position. I was like, well, I guess that's where I'm going, you know, because it was a gamble to just kind of be authentic during the job, like interviewing process. But it was kind of one of those, is like, if they offer you the position while you're being like this authentic, then you should probably go. And they did, and I'm here.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
So, can you briefly tell us about your current research?
Oh, my current research is kind of piggybacking off of my dissertation research and hopefully expanding on it more here in Louisville. But I look at higher education inequality, so particularly first generation students and students of color. So you would see like I would kind of define them as like more vulnerable students who, you know, like often achieve, like overachievers, or, you know, like kind of overcome odds, and people kind of write about them or look at them as like, oh, you know, like despite these barriers, they did this and this. And my research is it's qualitative in nature, and I like to give those students a story. So instead of looking at the outcome and kind of giving them a chance to discuss how they got here, how they got to college, so not even at UofL, but just like how they got to where they are, like the people that they leaned on to help them in the process. So a different view of family during the process. So instead of looking at social capital, actually having them explain like what, you know, having a cousin in school meant to them, things like that. And so that's pretty much my research now, is like looking at some of the more vulnerable students and how they are overcoming obstacles, but also excelling while also, like, you know, living day to day. And so like qualitative interviews that happen across time kind of gives me that, like, that method, that insight. And so I'm just digging into those stories right now in my current research.
So, having recently been a graduate student
Mm-hmm.
and now a faculty member here at UofL, what advice would you give students considering sociology?
For grad students or for undergrads going into grad school?
You know, both.
Both. Okay. So for undergrads, if they're considering sociology in general, I'd say, yeah, the classes are fun. You learn a lot. Just don't trap yourself into thinking one way. I think that's one of the benefits of like being an undergrad sociology major or taking the classes. It's just kind of like seeing different viewpoints and different ways to address topics that are really big, like stratification, inequality, education, like all of those different mechanisms that exist in our everyday lives. And for graduate students, I'd say, like, if you're already in a grad program, you know, like, you've done what you wanted to do. Like, I always like to highlight that with grad students, like, you're here now, and so, you know, like, embrace it, like, be happy. I know it's hard. It's so hard. It's like, it's mentally tough. So it's like, you know, like, if you step back, you're like, oh, all I have to do is read these books. But like in the time crunch, or like, all I have to do is read all these books, you know, type of thing. And so I like to just remind grad students of, like, just remember why you came, and like, and push through, but also take care of yourself. So it sounds kind of like paradoxical, like, you know, take care of yourself, but also push through. But I think when you're in a situation, like, accepting the fact that you can't do everything, but like, try your hardest. I think that's what I say to like most grad students, is just kind of remember that it, you know, it is an opportunity. It's fun. It's not your whole life. So, you know, like, you want to do it well, but also make sure you take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Dr. Whiteside.
No problem.